amidst the roses. From the swirling petals emerged a figure, its form shifting like smoke caught in a breeze. It was neither fully solid nor entirely ephemeral, translucent yet undeniable. Alara's breath caught as the shape coalesced into the mournful visage of a woman, her hair flowing like tendrils of shadow, eyes deep pools of sorrow and rage. This was the lovelorn witch, the origin of the floral curse, a spirit bound to Ravenwood by betrayal and heartbreak centuries ago. The apparition's voice was both a whisper and a sigh, echoing through the garden like a lament. "Why do you come, mortal?" "To join the others who vanished beneath these roses," it asked, the words thick with centuries of pain. Alara stepped forward, the dirt stained hem of her coat brushing against thorny stems. "I come not to join, but to understand," she said, her voice steady despite the fear threading through her veins. "Your pain is clear, your sorrow deep. But this suffering, does it have to continue?" Behind her, Rowan's steady presence was a balm. He reached out, taking her hand in his, grounding her in the tangible warmth of human connection. His blue eyes held fierce determination, a promise that she was not alone in this fight. The witch's form wavered, petals swirling violently as the garden itself seemed to pulse with a malignant heartbeat. Thorns twisted and creaked, the ground trembling beneath their feet as if the earth wished to swallow them whole. Yet Alara stood firm, drawing on every ounce of courage and empathy she possessed. The curse was born from betrayal, the spirit whispered, a sacrifice made in love and despair. It binds the garden and those who dare to love within it, trapping them in an endless cycle of loss. Alara's mind raced, piecing together the fragments Mara had shared, the sacrifices, the vanished lovers, the legacy Rowan bore. If love caused this pain, she murmured, then love must be the key to breaking it. She spoke then not with spells or incantations, but with words of forgiveness and hope. She acknowledged the witch's sorrow, the betrayal that had chained her spirit, offering release through understanding rather than vengeance. Rowan squeezed her hand, his silent encouragement fueling her resolve. Slowly, the curse's form faltered, the sinister glow of the roses dimming as the garden exhaled a breath it had held for centuries. Dawn's first light broke through the twisted branches, casting a gentle golden glow over the landscape. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a fragile peace. But the victory was bittersweet. Alara knew this was but a step in a longer journey. The curse's demands had been revealed, the price still to be paid. Yet in the heart of the garden, surrounded by fading thorns and softening petals, the seeds of hope had been planted. As the morning birds began their song, Alara and Rowan stood together, united against the darkness that had haunted Ravenwood. Their love, tested by fear and sacrifice, now shone as a beacon, fragile, bright, and enduring. And somewhere deep within the garden, the curse watched, waiting for the next move in this ancient dance of love and loss. The air was dense with the scent of damp earth and the faint, sickly sweetness of roses past their prime, curling and darkening beneath the twilight sky of Ravenwood. At the heart of the garden, where the oldest roses had bloomed for centuries, Alara and Rowan stood side by side, their breaths shallow, hands joined with trembling certainty. Mara, the silver-haired herbalist, circled them slowly, her voice rising in a low chant, weaving words older than any of them had lived, threading magic and hope into the fading petals that carpeted the ground. Alara's eyes flicked nervously to the stone altar before them, a slab worn smooth by time, carved with symbols that pulsed faintly with a pale light. The very air crackled with a charged expectancy, as if the garden itself was holding its breath. Rowan's face was set, calm and resolute beneath his messy auburn hair, his piercing blue eyes locked on the ceremonial knife, resting beside the altar. The blade gleamed, catching the last rays of dying sunlight, a sharp contrast to the wilting roses that surrounded them. "Are you certain?" Alara whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising wind that stirred the thorny branches, their whispers almost human in their mournfulness. Rowan nodded, a quiet fire burning in his gaze. "I have carried this burden for too long, It ends tonight. Mara's chant deepened, her hands weaving through the air, drawing unseen sigils of protection. The sacrifice must be willing, and the bond unbroken. Only then will the curse unravel, she intoned solemnly. Alara's heart clenched as Rowan extended his hand toward the knife. The moment felt suspended in time, the weight of generations pressing down on them. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against Rowan's palm, steadying him. "We'll face this together," she vowed. With a breath that was both steady and shuddering, Rowan grasped the knife and pressed its cold edge to his skin. A sharp sting blossomed, crimson droplets welling and then falling onto the altar, mingling with the brittle petals. The garden seemed to exhale a shiver coursing through the air, the roses' vibrant colors dimming as if drained of their lifeblood. Alara felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them back. The ritual was far from over, and their sacrifice was only the beginning. Mara stepped forward, her voice rising in a crescendo that echoed through the garden, weaving threads of ancient magic that wrapped around Alara and Rowan, binding their souls to the land and to each other. "The curse knows pain," Mara said, her eyes gleaming with unshed tears. "It feeds on love and loss, but love can also be its undoing." As the last notes of the chant faded, a gust of wind swept through the garden, carrying with it the scent of ashes and wilted blooms. The roses trembled, petals cascading down like delicate rain, carpeting the earth in a blanket of fading beauty. It was a sign the curse was weakening, but the cost was etched deeply into their hearts. Alara turned to Rowan, their hands still entwined, feeling the pulse of his blood mingling with hers, a tangible proof of their shared fate. "What happens now?" she asked softly, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Rowan's gaze softened, the pain and hope intertwining in his expression. "Now, we wait and heal. The garden will change, and so will we. But this," he gestured to the withering roses, "this is the first step toward freedom." A silence settled between them, profound and sacred, as the garden settled into its new state. The curse's grip was loosening, but its shadows would linger, reminding them of the sacrifices made and the love that had conquered darkness. Alara's mind raced with questions, but for the first time in many seasons, hope blossomed, a fragile, tentative thing, like the first green shoot pushing through ash. Their story was far from over, but in that moment, beneath the withering roses, they found strength in each other, ready to face whatever dawn awaited. And as night fell over Ravenwood, the garden whispered its secrets once more, but this time they spoke of salvation rather than sorrow. The dawn crept slowly over Ravenwood, painting the sky in pale hues of lavender and gold that spilled like a gentle promise across the scarred earth. Alara stood at the edge of the garden, her breath shallow and heart aching with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and fading roses, no longer the vibrant reds and pinks that had once dazzled the eye, but muted shades of soft pink-white and the faintest blush of decay. The garden was alive but changed, a fragile whisper of what had been and what could be. Rowan's hand found hers, warm and steady despite the tremble of the morning chill. His gaze swept over the garden with a quiet reverence, eyes reflecting the lingering shadows of loss yet alight with something new hope. "It's different," he murmured, voice low, as if afraid to shatter the fragile peace. "It is," Alara agreed, squeezing his hand, "but it feels lighter. Like the weight has lifted, even if the scars remain." Together, they stepped into the garden's heart, where the roses no longer held their deadly secret. The petals, once sharp and glowing with unnatural life, now drooped gently, touched by the soft fingers of dawn and the promise of rest. The thorns still prickled the skin, a reminder of the past, but their menace had dulled. Alara's fingertips brushed a fallen petal, delicate as a sigh, and she let it slip through her fingers, watching it drift to the soil below. Behind them, the village of Ravenwood stirred. Mara stood by the edge of the garden, her silver hair catching the first rays of sunlight as she spoke quietly to a gathering of villagers. Her voice was soft but sure, carrying stories of the past tales of love, loss, and sacrifice that had once bound them all in fear. Now, her words were threads of healing, weaving the community back together. The villagers listened intently, eyes wide with cautious optimism, the old walls of suspicion beginning to crumble. Nathan approached the group, his face etched with the lines of worry now softened by understanding. When his gaze met Alara's, he offered a tentative smile born of respect and reluctant admiration. "You were right to stay," he admitted, voice low. "I didn't want to see you get hurt. But you've changed things here." Alara nodded, a bittersweet smile crossing her lips. "We all have." Leela, Rowan's younger sister, burst through the crowd with unrestrained laughter, her youthful energy a stark contrast to the heavy memories that had once clouded the garden. She darted through the pathways with a freedom that spoke louder than words, a symbol of new beginnings and the lifting of shadows that had long haunted her family. As the sun rose higher, casting golden beams through the skeletal branches, Alara and Rowan stood together, their silhouettes entwined against the backdrop of a garden that was healing. They had made sacrifices that cut deep, their love tempered by loss but strengthened by hope. The roses might have turned to ash, but from those ashes, something new was growing, something fragile, something beautiful. Alara's thoughts drifted to the future, to the life that awaited beyond the cursed boundaries of Ravenwood. She would carry the memory of the garden's dark legacy, but it would no longer chain her. Rowan's steady presence at her side was a reminder that love, even when forged in pain, could endure and blossom anew. The villagers began to emerge from their homes, tentative smiles replacing wary glances. Conversations sparked, laughter echoed softly, and the old fears that had gripped Ravenwood slowly loosened their hold. Mara's wisdom, Nathan's protection, and Lilla's youthful spirit were the first rays of light breaking through years of darkness. Alara knelt by a patch of roses, now pale and fragile, and gently pressed a hand to the earth. "We've ended the curse," she whispered. "But the garden will always hold its stories." Rowan knelt beside her, his blue eyes reflecting the dawn's light. "And we'll make sure those stories are ones of hope and healing from now on." The garden breathed around them, alive with the echoes of the past and the promise of tomorrow. It was a beginning, painful, imperfect, but theirs. As they rose, the wind stirred the petals, carrying them softly away like whispered blessings. Alara and Rowan walked forward, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held, their hearts intertwined in a love forged through darkness and now blossoming in the light. But as the last petal fell, a faint chill lingered on the breeze, a reminder that some shadows, no matter how faint, never fully fade away. And so, with renewed strength and fragile hope, their story continued. The morning light spilled gently across the garden, casting a golden glow that seemed to breathe life into every petal and leaf. Alara stood at the edge of the newly tilled soil, her green eyes tracing the contours of a cluster of freshly bloomed roses. The scent was intoxicating, a blend of earth, dew, and something indefinably magical that seemed to hum beneath the surface. She knelt, brushing her fingers against the delicate veins of a rose petal, feeling its softness, its fragility. The garden, once a place of whispered fears and shadowed secrets, now vibrated with a quiet promise. Rowan appeared at her side, his auburn hair tousled by the morning breeze, blue eyes reflecting the calm strength that had grown within him over these past months. He watched her silently, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Looks like you've found a friend," he said softly. Alara looked up, her smile tentative but genuine. "Not just a friend," she replied, "a new beginning." It was a sentiment that felt heavier than the words alone, a turning point forged from sacrifice, pain, and an unyielding hope. The curse that had once bound the garden in darkness was no longer a looming threat, but a memory etched into the soil, a scar healing beneath the sun's gentle warmth. Together, they walked the familiar paths lined with roses now blooming in softer hues, their colors less fierce but no less beautiful. The flowers seemed to respond to their presence, petals unfurling, as if reaching toward the future they dared to imagine. Alara's footsteps were steady, grounded by a newfound acceptance of the garden's magic alongside her scientific mind. She had spent years questioning, probing, doubting, but now she understood that the garden's enchantment was not a contradiction to reason but a complement. "UV changed," Rowan observed, breaking the comfortable silence as they paused near the ancient stone fountain, its waters clear and singing with life. Alara nodded, her gaze drifting to the sparkling surface. "So have you?" He took her hand, their fingers intertwining with a familiarity born of shared trials. "I used to think I had to protect the garden alone, that opening up was weakness. But with you, I see strength in trust." Her heart swelled at his words, the walls she had built around him crumbling under the weight of genuine connection. "We re stronger together," she whispered. Their moment was interrupted by the soft rustle of footsteps. Mara approached, her silver hair catching the light like a halo. In her hands, she carried a woven basket filled with herbs and a collection of ancient scrolls, relics of the garden's deeper history. "The roses are responding," Mara said, her voice steady and warm. "The balance is shifting." Alara accepted the basket gratefully, feeling the pulse of old magic in Mara's touch. "What must we do now?" Mara smiled, a glimmer of pride and relief in her eyes. "Protect the harmony you've helped create. Nurture the garden as you nurture each other. Science and magic, intertwined like the roots beneath your feet." Later, beneath the canopy of blossoming branches, Mara guided Alara through a ritual of blessing. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and rosemary, the soft chant of ancient words weaving a protective spell around the garden's heart. Alara's hands trembled as she traced symbols on the earth, feeling the warmth of the magic seep into her skin, a tangible connection to the legacy she had once feared. Meanwhile, Rowan tended to the roses with reverence, his every movement a silent prayer. His past burdens, once a heavy cloak, now felt lighter, shared and understood. Beside him, Lila darted through the garden paths, her laughter ringing like bells, a bright spark of life and innocence. She stopped to pluck a wildflower, her eyes shining with dreams untainted by the curse's shadow. Alara watched them both, a fierce, protective love swelling within her. "This is what we fight for," she said softly to Rowan. "Not just survival, but a future where love isn't chained by fear." Rowan nodded, his gaze steady and full of promise. "We'll grow new roots here together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and amber, Alara and Rowan stood hand in hand amid the gentle sway of petals. The garden was no longer a place of despair but a sanctuary of hope, where science and magic danced in harmony, and love blossomed anew, fierce, fragile and free. But even as night settled, a whisper lingered on the breeze, a reminder that the past's shadows were never far. Yet they faced it unafraid, bound by a love that had weathered storms and emerged stronger. "Whatever comes," Alara murmured, "we face it as one." Rowan squeezed her hand, their hearts beating in unison beneath the vast, starlit sky. Together. And so, with the garden's legacy rewritten, their story continued, a testament to endurance, to sacrifice, and to the unbreakable power of new roots taking hold in the fertile soil of hope. The firelight danced across the walls of Mara's small cottage, casting flickering shadows that seemed to breathe with the ancient magic enfolding the room. Alara sat across from Mara, the scent of dried herbs and earth mingling in the air, filling the space with a profound sense of life and history. Between them lay a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with time, inscribed with flowing script that hinted at secrets long kept from the world outside Ravenwood. Mara's silver hair caught the glow of the fire as she spoke, her voice steady but carrying the weight of generations. "My family has been the garden's guardians for centuries," she began, her eyes reflecting both pride and sorrow. "We made a pact long ago, binding ourselves to the land and its magic to protect it, and those who love within it from destruction. But it has come at a cost." Alara leaned forward, the lines of curiosity and empathy etched deep into her face. She had come seeking answers, and Mara was offering more than she had dared hope. The curse, Mara continued, is not merely a punishment, but a protection. It guards the garden from forces that would see it destroyed or exploited. But it demands sacrifice. The price of love here has always been high. Rowan entered quietly, his presence grounding the room like the roots of the ancient roses outside. His piercing blue eyes met Elara's, a silent conversation passing between them, a mix of understanding, fear, and resolve. Mara glanced at him, a hint of a smile softening her features. "You both carry this legacy now," she said gently. "Not as victims, but as stewards. It is your choice how to honor those who came before." The next evening, under a sky bruised by the fading light of dusk, Elara and Rowan wandered the garden. The roses, once vibrant and intoxicating, now drooped, their petals curling into ash-like husks. They moved slowly, hands intertwined, as if drawing strength from one another amidst the quiet morning. Elara's voice broke the silence. "So many lost here. Lovers who vanished like whispers carried off by the wind." Rowan squeezed her hand gently, "But their memories linger in the soil, the thorns, the blooms. We owe them more than silence." Together they knelt by a patch of stubborn buds, pushing through the cracked earth, tiny proofs of life, refusing to be extinguished. Elara's fingers brushed the green shoots, her heart swelling with a cautious hope. "This is our beginning," she whispered. Rowan smiled softly, the first genuine smile Elara had seen from him in weeks, a future unbound by the past. Days later, beneath a blanket of stars, the three gathered by the garden's ancient stone wall. The air hummed with quiet magic, the night alive with possibility. Mara's voice was low but firm as she spoke of balance, stewardship, and hope. "We cannot undo what has been done," she said, "but we can choose how to move forward. The garden needs guardians, not prisoners of fear or sorrow, but protectors of life and love." Elara and Rowan nodded in solemn agreement, their intertwined hands a symbol of unity and strength. The garden, though scarred, was breathing anew around them. The roses might be fading, but beneath the ash lay seeds waiting to bloom. Together, they vowed to honor the past by nurturing the future, to protect the fragile magic that had bound so many, yet to break the cycle of loss and fear, to let hope blossom where shadows once ruled. As the first light of dawn crept over Ravenwood, the garden whispered promises of renewal. And Elara, Rowan, and Mara stepped forward, bound not by curse or sacrifice, but by love, courage, and an unyielding belief in what could be. But even as the garden stirred with new life, a lingering question remained. Could they truly break free from the legacy that had shaped them? Or would the shadows of the past forever entwine their fate? The answer would come in time, as the roses slowly began to bloom once more. The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the dense canopy of the ancient rose arbor, dappling the ground with warm pools of light and shadow. Elara sat cross-legged beneath the intertwined branches, her journal open on her lap, pen poised thoughtfully above the yellowed pages. The faint scent of fading roses hung in the air, a bittersweet reminder of both beauty and loss. Her sharp green eyes traced the words she had written, then looked up to the garden around her. The petals, once vibrant and intoxicating, now fluttered gently to the earth, their colors dimming but still holding a quiet grace. This garden had been a crucible of pain and mystery, a place where love had both blossomed and withered under the weight of a curse centuries old. Elara's journey here had begun with skepticism and cold scientific inquiry, a determination to unravel the secrets buried beneath the soil and thorns. Yet now, as the sun fell lower, she felt the fragile threads of hope weaving through her heart. It was not just about evidence or explanation anymore, it was about understanding, acceptance, and the weight of sacrifice. She skimmed her notes, recalling the moments that had shaped her transformation. The whispered warnings of Mara, the herbalist whose knowledge of ancient magic had opened doors Elara never thought to knock on. The steady presence of Rowan, the gardener's descendant, whose quiet strength had grounded her through every storm of doubt and fear. His piercing blue eyes, once clouded with guilt and burden, now held a glimmer of peace that mirrored her own burgeoning resolve. Alara closed her journal and rose, the soft rustle of her skirt mingling with the gentle sigh of the evening breeze. She wandered deeper into the garden, the earth beneath her feet cool and comforting. Ahead the stone memorial stood, worn smooth by time and weather, a testament to the generations bound to this land by love, loss, and the curse that had haunted them all. Rowan was already there, his figure silhouetted against the fading light as he traced his fingers over the carved names. The weight of his family's history had once been a shackle, but now it seemed to ground him. He turned as Alara approached, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "It's harder to feel burdened when you understand the roots," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of countless unspoken emotions. Alara reached out, her hand finding his, and easier to nurture new growth when you accept the past. They stood side by side in silence, the garden around them alive with the soft chorus of evening. Somewhere nearby, the last roses of the season bloomed weakly but defiantly, their petals a delicate promise of renewal. Later, in the cozy warmth of Mara's cottage, the three gathered around a low wooden table strewn with dried herbs and flickering candles. The air was thick with the earthy aroma of chamomile and lavender, calming and grounding. Mara's silver hair caught the candlelight as she smiled gently at them. "The garden will heal, as will those who care for it," she said. "But it will take tending, patience, and the courage to embrace both light and shadow." Alara nodded, feeling the truth of those words settle deep within her. "I'm ready to help," she said firmly. "Not just as a botanist, but as part of this story." Rowan reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Together," he promised. As twilight deepened, Alara and Rowan returned once more to the garden. The night air was cool, their breaths visible as they stood amidst the softened glow of the lingering roses. The curse had been broken, but its echoes lingered, a reminder of what had been lost and what could still be nurtured. "This place will never be the same," Alara whispered. "Nor will we," Rowan replied, his gaze steady and unwavering. "But that's not a bad thing." Their fingers intertwined, a silent vow passing between them. In the garden where roses once turned to ash, hope now blossomed anew. And though the path ahead was uncertain, they would walk it together, bound not by curse, but by love, sacrifice, and the promise of new beginnings. Yet, as the night deepened and shadows lengthened, a faint rustling stirred among the thorns, a whisper of the past, a question of the future. The pale light of dawn filtered softly through the heavy branches of the ancient oaks surrounding Ravenwood's rose garden. The air was cool, still carrying the faint scent of night's lingering dew. But as Alara stepped carefully along the wending path, a subtle warmth bloomed in her chest. Before her stretched rows of roses, their petals no longer the fierce crimson or ominous black that had once marked the curse's terrible grip. Instead, they were fragile muted pinks, gentle ivory, and the softest blushes of peach, each bloom trembling with tentative life, as if the garden itself was breathing a quiet sigh of relief. Alaric knelt beside a cluster of these pale roses, her fingers brushing lightly over the delicate petals. A faint glow seemed to pulse from within them, a gentle light that had not been there before. The air was thick with the sweet scent of earth and new growth, mingling with the distant song of birds whose melodies celebrated the fragile renewal. Her heart swelled with cautious hope, the years of fear and shadows slowly giving way to something new, something beautiful. Behind her, the soft crunch of footsteps stirred the silence. Rowan's voice, low and steady, broke through the morning stillness. "They're different now," he said, his piercing blue eyes reflecting the pale light. "Not like before. The curse's hold is weakening." Alara glanced up, meeting his gaze. There was a softness there she hadn't seen in months, no longer the guarded, burdened man who carried the weight of centuries on his shoulders, but someone reborn alongside the garden's fragile blooms. She reached out, intertwining her fingers with his, the warmth of his hand grounding her. "It's because we fought for this," she whispered. "Because we refused to let the darkness win. Together,